Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachahakodash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders at Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations, as always, to the elect. And I wanted to deal with the mixed multitude, all right, that left, all right, Egypt along with the children of Israel. And how many, all right, of these pagan, anti-Messiah, so-called Christians, are now, because when you go into the past and how they would deal with us, they would say, well, we understand that the first covenant was for the Israelites, but now the second covenant through Jesus Christ is for all nations, all right, then they would, get John 3:16, then they would lean up on Abraham, cutting off, the promise that was, given also to Isaac and Jacob and the 12 tribes. Now, they're full-blown saying, well, it was always for the other nations. Even when you go to the Old Covenant, the Old Testament, it was always promised, that salvation will be given to the heathen as well. And, it's very interesting how hard people go, to try to, insert heathen into the blessing that was promised to the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which that blessing is only for the Israelites, all right? But their way to that blessing will be through faith and not through the law, all right? Because there was a promise given unto Abraham, passed down to Isaac, all right? And then it was put on the head of Jacob, who had 12 sons, all right? Which of those 12 sons, all right, there was a promise made. There was to the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was that promise. All right, and all of these heathen have had, their blessing. They've had their rulerships, but the blessing of the kingdom of heaven is not for them. All right, but anyway, I wanted to deal with the mixed multitude because this is now, over the years, this is something, that these anti-Messiah pagans who call themselves Christians would lean on. And I saw a comment, the other day where someone was going back and forth. Well, there was a mixed multitude who left Egypt with the children of Israel. Well, the question is, did they enter into a covenant agreement with the Most High? Absolutely not. Okay? There's going to be a mixed multitude of heathen who survived the destruction. All right, well, they're going to be entered into the second covenant? No. Okay, the scriptures tell you, all right, through prophecy, what happens with them. There was a mixed multitude, as we'll show you, of the heathen at the time King Solomon forwarded the throne of David. Were they entered into a covenant with the Most High? No. All right, but there is laws and order on how to deal with them. This is the book of Exodus, the 12th chapter and the 37th verse, and it says, and the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot, that were men besides children. All right, men and women and children. All right, so 600,000 men plus all the women and children, all right, were with them as they journeyed out of Egypt. All right, it says, in a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds and very much cattle. So a mixed multitude, all right, or a rabble of non-Israelites, as it says in the NLT, went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle. Okay, these heathen were numbered amongst the flocks, the herd, and the cattle. Okay, now I went to the scholars, right? This is Matthew Poole. He says a mixed multitude consisting of Egyptians and other people who went with them, either because they were their servants, all right, or that by this mean they might free themselves from the servitude which they endured under hard masters in Egypt, or because the glorious work which they had seen. All right, there were a remnant of these heathen nations, who were in Egypt as well, all right, who weren't taken by the plagues, who ultimately came out of Egypt with the Israelites. Okay. It says, let's see here, yada, yada, yada. John Gill and a mixed multitude went up also with them. Some of these were Egyptians, and some were other nations that had resided in Egypt, who on various accounts might choose to go along with the children of Israel, some through intermarriages with them, being loath to part with their relations. See Leviticus 20 and 10. Let's get Leviticus 20 and 10. Where is it? Exodus, Salakia. Leviticus, give me 1 second. All right, it's actually Leviticus 24 and 10. It says, and the son of an Israelitish woman whose father was an Egyptian, so she lay with a heathen man and had a child, right? And in the book of, what is that? Deuteronomy, it tells you, all right, that those children would never enter into the congregation of the Lord. All right, but the children that are begotten of them, meaning the men of our nation who lay with their women, the children will return in the third and fourth generation. But anyway, it says, and the son, all right, I'll read in the NLT. It says, one day a man who had an Israelite mother and an Egyptian father came out of his tent and got into a fight with one of the Israelite men. This is one of the, all right, mixed multitude who came out of Egypt, all right, with the Israelites. During the fight, the son of the Israelite woman blasphemed the name of the Lord and was with a curse. So the man was brought to Moses for judgment. His mother, all right, was Shelemith, the daughter of Dibri of the tribe of Dan. They kept the man in custody until the Lord's will in the matter should become clear. Then the Lord said unto Moses, take the blasphemer outside the camp and tell all those who heard the curse to lay their hands on his head. All right. Then let the entire community stone him to death. All right. Say to the people of Israel, those who curse their God will be punished for their sin. All right. So this was an example that you did have, all right, heathen, all right, who came out of Egypt with us. As a matter of fact, this very, all right, number in the book of Numbers, the 11th chapter. Okay. Let's see here. Numbers, the 11th chapter in the 4th verse says, and a mixed multitude that was among them fell a lusting, and the children of Israel also wept again, saying, who shall give us flesh to eat? So the mixed multitude were there. But the question is, all right, let's go back to Exodus, okay, the 12th chapter, Exodus 12 and 35. All right. Or let's, yeah, Exodus 12 and 37. And the children of Israel sojourned in Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 men on foot, besides them the women and the children. And a mixed multitude went up also with them, all right, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle. Now this mixed multitude, all right, when it comes to us entering into a covenant agreement with the Heavenly Father, in Exodus the 24th chapter, the people affirm their covenant with the Most High, okay? Not one of these people who were of that mixed multitude were a part of this covenant, okay? This is the book of Exodus 24 and 4. And Moses wrote all the words of the Lord and rose up early in the morning and built the altar under the hill and 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent young men and women and children which offered burnt offerings, all right, and sacrificed peace offerings. And Moses took half of the blood and put it in the basin, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. And he took the book of the covenant and read it in the audience of the people. And all that heard said, all that the Lord have commanded that we do, all right, we will do, and be obedient. Okay. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it upon the people and said, behold, the blood of the covenant which the Lord have made with you concerning all these words. And that covenant was made with Israel. Okay, when you read this story, this covenant was made with the children of Israel. This is why we're under the curses unto this day, because our fathers agreed to the terms of that covenant, but eventually they broke it. You see? And when you account the children of the promise as we were entering into the promised land, all right, in the book of Numbers, all right, let's get Numbers, the first chapter. Okay, the census of Israel's warriors. All right, when you read, all right, the inheritance being parted amongst the 12 tribes of Israel. All right, not even another tribe could partake in the inheritance of another tribe's inheritance. So how much more a heathen? Okay, this was for the Israelites. When you read the book of Numbers, when you read the book of Chronicles, all right, it's all about the nation of Israel. Okay, you can read that in this chapter, Numbers, the 36th chapter. All right. It says in the NLT, then the heads of the clans of Gilead, the descendants of Manasseh, came to Moses and the families of the leaders of Israel with the petition. All right, and you can read it. All right, you go to Joshua. Okay, the inheritance was parted amongst the 12 tribes of Israel when it came to the promise, because that promise was given unto Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, they're entering into this land based upon what was told, all right, to Abraham here in Genesis, the 15th chapter. Okay, this is Genesis, the 15th chapter. Let's go to around the 12th verse, 13th verse, NLT. Then the Lord said to Abram, you can be sure that your descendants will be strangers in a foreign land, where they will be oppressed as slaves 400 years. That was in Egypt. But I will punish that nation which enslaved them, and in the end they will come away with great wealth. All right, that was fulfilled in Egypt. Okay. As for you, you will die in peace and be buried at an old age. After the 4th generation, your descendants will return here to this land, all right, for the sins of the Amorites, all right, doth not yet warrant their destruction. So right now is not the time for them to get the land, but in the 4th generation, your descendants through Isaac and Jacob, all right, will return and come into this land. Okay, let's keep reading. After the sun went down, Abram fell. Abram saw a smoking fire and a pot of flaming torch pass between the halves of the carcasses. So the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, or Abram, and said, I have given this land to your descendants all the way, all right, to the border of Egypt, to the great river Euphrates, the land that is now occupied by the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites. So when you go to the 4th generation in Egypt, all right, the 4th generation on down the line from the time Abram passed, all right, Exodus, the 2nd chapter, I believe. All right, Exodus, the 2nd chapter, in the 23rd verse. And it came to pass in the process of time that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage. And they cried, and their cry came up to the Most High by reason of bondage. And God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant he made with Abraham and with Isaac and with Jacob. And he looked upon the children of Israel, and God had respect unto them. Okay? So this, again, us entering into that promised land was predicated upon a promise that was given unto Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Just because you have in Exodus, the 12th chapter, a mixed multitude that's with them, doesn't mean that they're accounted for children of the promise. Okay? Because the same thing happened at the time of King Solomon. Okay? All right, 1 Kings 9 and 20. This is when Solomon forwarded the throne of David after David beat down all of the heathen. Verse 20 in the NLT, there were still some people living in the land who were not Israelites, including Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. They had been there since the time of Abram. They had been in that land since that time, but the Lord had commanded the children of Israel under Joshua, Caleb. All right, then you go through the judges. Okay, then you know at the time of King David, all right, he drove, he beat them down and ultimately took the land back. But at the time Solomon forwarded his throne, there were still some people living in the land who were not Israelites, including Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. These were descendants of the nations whom the people of Israel had not completely destroyed. So Solomon conscripted them to his labor force, and they served in his labor force unto this day. So he put them to work. They didn't partake in the fatness of the promise that the Israelites had. Look, when you get 1 Kings, the 4th chapter, right? In the 19th verse, in the 20th verse, it says, Judah and Israel were as many as the sand of the sea, which is in multitude, eating and drinking and making merry. And Solomon reigned over all the kingdoms from the river, all right, unto the land of the Philistines, unto the border of Egypt, the very land that was promised to Abraham, might I say, Isaac, Jacob. Solomon ruled in that land after King David had beat down the heathen, okay, and established his throne. Solomon forwarded that throne for 40 years, but there was a mixed multitude around this time, right? And what did Solomon do with them? He put them in slavery. He put them in captivity. They were servants. People hear servant, slave, and they lose their goddamn mind. Well, that's what's going to happen to the heathen. That's what do you think's happening to you right now? Goodness gracious. The heathen will not be joint heirs with the Israelites in the promise that's given to the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay? So 1 Kings 9 and 21, these were descendants of the nations who were not Israelites, Solomon had not completely destroyed. The Israelites had not completely destroyed. So Solomon conscripted them to his labor force, and they serve unto his labor force unto this day. But Solomon did not conscript any of the Israelites to forced labor. Instead, he assigned them to serve as fighting men, government officials, officers, and captains of his army, all right, commanders of his chariots and charioteers. So he put his people on. Okay? Remember, it's promised, it's written, all right? Genesis 27 and 28, right? Genesis 27 and 28. This was the blessing that Jacob received. Therefore, God give thee the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth and plenty of corn and wine. Let people serve thee and nations bow down unto thee, and be Lord over thy brethren. Let thy mother's sons bow down unto thee. Cursed be everyone that curseth thee. Blessed be everyone that blesseth thee. All right. And they're not going to receive of the blessing of the kingdom. All right. But in a sense, you know, once, you know, they get their judgments, the Edomites are destroyed. Okay. If they follow our ways, okay, and pay their tribute, keep the laws to the, you know, statutes and commandments, they will be blessed when they do those things. But they're not going to receive of the blessing of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. See? 29 in the NLT. Many nations become your servants. This was already promised unto Jacob. This is why when we talk about the kingdom of heaven, okay, Isaiah 61, one of the promises and a part of the good news, all right, Isaiah 61 and 1, and the Spirit of the Most High is upon me, because the Lord have appointed me and anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. He have sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison of them that are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord, in the day of vengeance of our power, to comfort all that mourn in Zion. So as you go down, this is one of the promises. Verse 5, and strangers shall stand to feed your flock, and the son of the alien shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers. Okay, meaning they're going to work for us, just like we read them working for Solomon. Well, it's going to be the same thing. Let's look up the word plowman. Ikar, plowman, husbandman, farmer, working the land, yet not owning any of it. Just like right now, you're working the land and you're not owning any of it. Okay, well, again, in the kingdom of heaven, these heathen will be in that lot. Okay? As a matter of fact, let's get Proverbs 24 or 14 and 28. I'm going to read this in the NLT. A growing population is a king's glory, and a prince without subjects has nothing. So there's going to be subjects in the kingdom of heaven. They want you to look at all of the kingdoms of the heathen and how we were servants to them. But when we talk about the kingdom of heaven and them being servants unto us, it's just, oh my God. Then you got to go try to find every scripture you can to take that burden off. No. Okay, it's written, all right, in the Messiah himself. Revelation 2. Okay. In 26, and he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations, and he shall rule them with the rod of iron. As vessels of a potter shall they be broken in shivers, even as I have received of my Father. There's going to be a mixed multitude that is going to be left after the destruction. All right? We read about it in Revelation, the 6th chapter. Okay? Once that destruction comes, right? And the earth is moved out of its place. Revelation 6 and 15. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. So a lot of them are not going to be destroyed by the nuclear fire. So there's going to be a mixed multitude when ultimately the destruction comes and New Jerusalem eventually comes down. And what is going to be their role? What are they going to do? What are we going to do with them? Zechariah 14. And 16. And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up. Everyone that is left. Look at the word left. Yathar, to be left over, to remain. Remainder, left behind. Okay? They ain't going to be destroyed by the nuclear destruction. We need servants. Goodness gracious. Okay? And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left from all the nations, the heathen, which came against Jerusalem, all right, they shall go up even 1 year to another to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and keep the Feast of Tabernacles. All right, NLT. Any nation who refuses, in the world, who refuses to come to Jerusalem to worship the King, you're going to have to send representatives on those holy days. Okay? Any nation that refuses to come to Jerusalem to worship the King, all right, Yahweh, the Lord of heaven's armies, will have no rain, meaning we're going to put a plague on them. We're going to have a spiritual harp. Like right now, Esau Edom has a weather modification. All right. Through his left hand means in righteousness, we'll be able to put a plague on nations who don't obey us. If the people of Egypt, okay, refuse to attend the festival, meaning they ain't going to have the laws written in them, because if they had the laws written in them and they were under the new covenant, they would do all of the laws perfectly. The Lord will punish them with the same plague that he sends on other nations who refuse to go. Egypt and all the other nations will all be punished if they don't celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. So they're going to have to keep the laws. And if they don't, they get cursed. But you receive blessings when you do. Point blank period, man. Okay? Goodness gracious. In Leviticus 25. So we always had heathen sojourning amongst us. They ain't going to be on our level. Leviticus 25. And let's see here. Let's see here. Leviticus 25 and 44. Both thy bondmen and thy bondmaids, which thou shalt have, shall be of the heathen that are round about you. Of them shall ye buy bondmen and bondmaids. Yeah, a slave trade. All right. purchase. But see, there's laws on how to deal with these slaves. Okay? See, Esau when you think of servitude and slaves, you think of what Esau did. See, there's going to be a judgment that these heathen are going to get. All right? But it's going to be an orderly, righteous judgment. And there is judgment written, all right, where you're going to have to get your ass beat. Moreover, the children of the stranger that do sojourn among you, of them shall ye buy, and of all their families that are with you, which they may begat in your land, and they shall be your possession. And ye shall take them as an inheritance for your children after you, to inherit them for possession. They shall be your bondmen forever, but over your brethren of the children of Israel you shall not rule, all right, over one another with vigor. And we seen King Solomon keep this law. We just showed you an example. Yeah, there was mixed multitudes. It was always mixed multitudes of heathen. There's going to be a mixed multitude once the kingdom comes. Okay? But they're going to learn righteousness, man. Okay? Again, all right, the point of the kingdom of heaven, all right, is that the Son of the Most High, all right, Yahweh Shai reigns, but he's going to share it. He's joint, right? Everything he inherits, the earth, the heathen themselves, all right, will be shared with his people. Joint heirs to the promise. And the promise is only to the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. No heathen will partake in that promise. Get over it. You heathen, the heathen have had their rulerships. They've had their blessings. Goodness gracious. So no, the mixed multitude, yeah, they were there. They did come with the children of Israel out of Egypt, but they were not entered into a covenant agreement. All right, they're not accounted as children of the promise. Get that through your heads, man. Shalom.